Welcome back, everybody. This is the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity Podcast. I am Sean LaFlock, and I have a very special guest here today. Her name is Mayra Brandt. She is a two-time CrossFit Games competitor, two-time regional competitor, owner of CrossFit Delray Beach and Boca Extreme Cheer in Boca Raton, Florida. I got to sit down and chat with Mayra prior to her third consecutive Masters online qualifier, and we got to pick her brain about her history in competing, her mindset, how she's approaching this season after injury, and advice for anybody who's coaching or raising kids in today's day and age of sports. Guys, if you like this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review, and enjoy today's podcast.
Let's do
that.
This.
Gives everything all synced up here. Hello, Mayra.
Hi.
Mayra, I'm just going to go right into it. I did my little intro already as to who you are and how long I've known you, etc. But you're on the cusp of your third straight bid for Masters CrossFit Games. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So what I'd like to know kind of right off the bat is how you feeling going in. Maybe share with us a little bit of the journey over the last year, physically, mentally, that led you to this point.
Well, first off, I'm really excited that I made it this far. It's been quite an off season. I had a couple knee surgeries and am I talking in the right spot? All right. I had a couple knee surgeries and, it's been quite the recovery process coming back. It's been eye-opening. It's been pretty awesome. And slowly but surely, I've kind of made my way back. And again, I'm just really excited that I've made it all the way. Here we are. It starts tonight.
So, a couple knee surgeries. What exactly did you have done and how long did it take for you to get it done?
Well, I tore my meniscus the week before regionals of last year. So I already had a surgery scheduled for my left knee for the torn meniscus. It was just the arthroscopic meniscectomy of the left knee. Then at the games last year, my right knee kind of decided to just completely blow up. So when I got back and had the MRI, we realized that my right knee was actually worse than my left, so we kind of switched, and we did my right knee first. It was a total root repair of the medial and lateral meniscus. I was on crutches for 6 weeks, and then, slowly rehabs from there. It was basically just under the recovery process of an ACL surgery is what I had.
So obviously I was kind of there along the way as a partner in business and then at the time coaching you. But, just so that people who are listening and watching can get an idea, how challenging was it for you to go through this process as an athlete who probably hasn't had too many major injuries in her life?
Correct.
I mean, I remember you telling me that you might have had you get your knee cleaned up when you were younger, but this is especially in the sport of CrossFit, this is your one setback, right? How did that kind of go for you? Well,
after the games, again, I knew I was going to have the one surgery. So the second knee kind of put a damper in the what I thought would be a shorter recovery process. So going to those doctor's appointments and kind of deciding what we were doing was a little bit, of a freak out moment, saying that you're going to be out for months and months and months rather than just weeks. So initially it was pretty, overwhelming, I guess. Sitting here, counting the months and how much time until the Open and how much time until the qualifier. And I knew I'd be ready for the games, but I was just so worried that, you can't just go to the games. You have to qualify for it. So I was just worried that I wouldn't be ready for the Open. And then if I'm, couldn't make it through the Open, then I couldn't do the qualifier and then continue on. So technically I'll be officially ready, at games time. But really it's this time now that counts for me mostly rather than the games.
So, flashback to you get done with the games, you're deciding to get surgeries to repair your knees. Did you seek out guidance from anybody who's done this before? Was there any path back to, an optimal athlete?
Not that I know of. I mean, I didn't really follow anyone. All I know is I had 2 knee doctors who knew exactly what CrossFit was, who knew exactly what regionals was and the games. And one doctor actually did CrossFit. And then the other one, he works with like FAU football players or college football players, things like that. So he knows how I don't want to say desperately, but how desperately we want to get back out there, back on that field. So, and my physical therapist is the same way. He knew what type of athlete I was and what I needed to do to kind of get there. And I think we all just kind of, and then my coach, also kind of knew my route that I wanted to take. I mean, I want to make it back to the games, hands down. I want to compete again, but I want to do it right. So if it meant that I wasn't ready, then I wasn't ready. But luckily, everything kind of has gone slow and steady. And, here we are. We're ready.
So for those who are maybe going through this process themselves, whether they're a young pup in their 20s or maybe a more advanced athlete, were there certain times where you kind of felt hopeless? Were there certain times where you questioned what you had done, or was it fairly consistent along the way?
Well, once I had the mindset of just, I'm going to follow everything the physical therapist tells me to do, like period, to the point, like whether that meant I couldn't do the open, it is what it is. Once we decided that I wasn't going to compete in Wodapalooza because I would have not been ready. I would have been pushing too hard in order to be ready. It was kind of just focusing on doing what I could do versus, all my numbers and what I could not do. Once I started posting things on Instagram, actually that was kind of a breath of fresh air because people would respond or people would message me and who were in the same boat, and they would either kind of tell me a little bit of their story, or they would kind of ask me questions, or, they were a little ahead of me or behind me. We kind of went through this journey together, like compare like what was going on. And so, everybody surrounding me through this process, even people I didn't know on social media, has kind of helped when you are. I think at 1 or 2 posts, I asked for advice out there. I never really kind of do that on social media, but it was kind of like, okay, this is feeling funny. Like, anyone out there, is this normal? Like, what, because it's nice to hear from people rather than doctors and PTs sometimes, because, they do everything by the book and they want, everything, done by a timeline. But it's nice to hear sometimes from people, regular people who are kind of going through this stuff, that it's very normal, and they had it too. And this is how long it took. And, so even if it doesn't apply to exactly how long it took for me, it was at least a few words of encouragement.
So did you anticipate that kind of response via social media? Obviously, we see that social media tends to be very negative based. Mm-hmm. People very egoically going after things. But when you got that response, how did that make you feel? And what was your response based upon that? Yeah, no,
I think the whole social media thing has been mostly positive for me. People who make negative comments, they're so off base that it's almost comical rather than for me to take it personally in any way. So, the social media thing, and actually, I actually like looking back now. It's kind of cool to have some sort of, I don't know, I look back and riding a bike for the first time and how slow, like I would go so slow the monitor wouldn't even turn on. Like that's how slow I was allowed to go at the time, and it was, I think it was a great outlet for me through the rehab process, and to keep like my PT up to date, I guess visually, to see what I was doing, same thing with my coach. And then again, people out there were, I would say only positive things. It's funny, they would almost ask me for advice And, my advice to them is to listen to your physical therapist. Like, I'm not a doctor. And, where everyone's so different and my goals are different from other people's goals. So, it's just stick to that PT routine, try not to rush it. And, you'll start to feel a lot better.
It seems like you had this idea that you leaned into of like, I'm going to take my time with this. Yeah. Why did you go into that? I mean, obviously, people get very frantic of getting back to the games, getting back to competing, getting back to their normalcy of training. Mm-hmm. Did you have anything to fall back on? Did you have moments of like, oh shit, now I'm not training?
Yeah, I definitely. Well, I'm very competitive. And I love competing, so that. I mean, I knew I would never not compete again. I think that. Within CrossFit, especially Masters, it's almost comforting to know that I can keep competing as long as I want to. I know what it takes to get there. So that's, just an option training-wise. But with Wadapalooza right down the street, I don't know, there's so many great competitions, even just local ones for fun. I knew I'll be just fine if I'm not at the games because I can compete anywhere and it's a good time for me. I just love competition. So I want to be back at the games, absolutely. But, I also love competing locally. Or again, we could pick any competition anywhere and fly on out and compete anywhere. So
that doesn't seem to be very popular in terms of high-level CrossFitters' mentalities. A lot of them want to win. Mm-hmm. They want to, I'm not saying all of them, but I think a great deal have aspirations of being the best, mm-hmm. etc. When you start saying those things and you juxtapose that with the massive amount of high-level athletes, mm-hmm. How does that make you feel to like know that this is your purpose versus where their purpose kind of lies, at least on a very superficial, what you see through the lens way?
Well, I can see where they're coming from, obviously. I mean, once you're there and you want to keep doing it, especially if you like to compete. That's their journey. Everyone has a different journey. I'm not, I have no idea how people, but you could tell the differences in competitors, if this means everything to them in their world versus those that are there to kind of have a good time. I feel like I'm somewhere stuck in the middle. I think I am absolutely competitive. I love real competition versus like the online stuff. I love to go there. But it's just because, there's so much. I have so many other things kind of going on in life. So it's not everything for me.
Speaking of online competitions, that is one of the biggest challenges. I know I've done it personally since 2010, whatever the first Open was. I took 1 year off to go walk some silly distance. But how do you manage online competing? That has got to be the hardest thing. I mean, you said it yourself. It's fun when you're in person.
Yeah.
How do you manage? And I guess that's such a broad kind of deal. Let's just start off with, how do you manage preparation for online competing? Like, what's your mindset going in?
Well, it's just so hard because you don't have the kind of like the one and done mentality of a competition. You don't have the energy that is there in competition. I guess you can create it as much as possible.
Is that something that you try to do and go head to head with people?
Yeah, this year I think more so than ever, because you kind of, once you start to, I guess, train at this level, for me personally, it's lonely sometimes. I'm alone a lot. And although a lot of times it's necessary, I feel like it's always nice to have people, competing or working out with you. So I guess you can somewhat create it as best as possible, but I don't know. I mean, people can say the online qualifiers are great, but it's just nothing like real competitions. It's nothing like being there live and this is all you get. You don't get a second chance. You don't get, an extra day's rest or week's rest, or it's the weekend and however many workouts are that weekend. That's why the online qualifier, I think, is much more like a competition, just in the fact that we have 5 workouts in this one weekend, and that's that. You're eventually going to run out of time. There's only so many times you can do these workouts. So, but it's still not the same for me as a actual competition.
And Mayra is speaking about the CrossFit Games Masters online qualifier that's going to be coming up this coming weekend. So when we release this podcast, this will actually be released after the qualifier. So you guys will know how Mayra does this coming weekend. I guess that's a good segue into how has your preparation been since the Open? Mm-hmm. What did the Open go as anticipated? Were you prepared? You just came off an injury. You just came off surgeries. How did your expectations meet what actually happened?
Well, I think the Open went way better than expected. So I had to be top 200. And I'm not even kidding. I really thought I would be in the 100, around the 100 range.
And what did you finish?
24th. Well, it's funny. I was telling people that I'm like, I just have to be top 200. I'll be 200th, no problem. But inside, I know I would be really upset if I was 200th, like kind of panicky about it. And I thought I would be, again, somewhere in the hundreds. So ending up 24th, it was, again, beyond my expectations. And since then, it's basically just working a lot of my weaknesses, if I can improve my weaknesses a little bit more, keep my strengths, obviously, then, I think I can push it a little bit more.
I know this is a challenging question to ask any athlete, but what do you think your biggest strengths are?
Well,
and let's consider that in a physical standpoint first, and then maybe we can go to the mental game as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously gymnastic stuff is a strength for me. It comes a little more natural to me. I will say heavy lifting is a strength. However, I'm just not there yet. And, my numbers are not there yet just because of the recovery process. It's just going to take time. That's all. I'm getting there. I'm really close. But so that's a little hard to swallow sometimes because heavy weightlifting was like a really good strength of mine. And now I would say I'm just maybe average. So, yeah, mostly the gymnastic stuff.
And in the mental aspect of this, you've been competing pretty much all your life, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And again, can you share with us a little bit about give me your 30-second synopsis of your athletic background? Obviously, it's probably been covered in ad nauseum in other interviews and other, you just go look online, but a little 30-second synopsis of your athletic career in the last 30-plus years.
I grew up as a gymnast until I was about 14, 15 years old. So I was in high school at the time. I randomly played soccer for a year after gymnastics because that's what my sister did. And so I ended up playing for about 2 or 3 years in high school. Then I turned to competitive cheerleading. And I started cheering when I was like a junior, senior in high school and kind of been coaching ever since. I did cheer in college. And I've been coaching cheerleading and tumbling ever since, probably since I was 16, 19, since I was a teenager.
Without getting too much into a segue or a tangent, excuse me, have you come across many other high-level athletes that tend to be from cheer, especially on the female spectrum?
I would say gymnastics. I'm sure cheerleading is a kind of when people leave gymnastics, it's kind of they go to diving or maybe cheerleading just because of tumbling. Why not
diving, Mayra?
Why not diving? I don't know. I didn't know anybody who was a diver. I don't think our school is really known for diving. So okay. I didn't, it's kind of really who you know, what you kind of follow along with. So, and I love tumbling so much. I used to love floor at gymnastics all the time. So cheerleading was the best way to go because it's like sometimes just a big floor routine for me. Yeah, I mean, mostly it's just gymnastics, I would say. But I wouldn't be surprised if they started in gymnastics and ended in cheerleading, because that's usually what happens.
So you've got now about, from the age of, when did you start gymnastics?
I was 6.
So from the age of 6 all the way to high school, 13, 14 years old, you were doing gymnastics on a relatively competitive level.
Absolutely.
And then you moved into you moved into soccer and then into cheer and then did that on a collegiate level. After you graduated college, were you continuing any kind of competitive athletic endeavors, or was it more of like moving into the next phase of your life?
No, I was married. I was coaching, so I didn't perform. I mean, maybe every once in a while I performed, but I didn't compete or perform at all. But I was always in a gym.
And were you working out at the time? Did you stay fit? How did you stay fit?
I wouldn't say nothing really stuck. I mean, I maybe went to a gym, a little bit and, did the good old back buys, chest tries kind of routine. I don't know, would take classes here, but nothing really concrete until CrossFit came along. People
have called you in the past the natural.
Yeah.
Shout out to Dave Hochberg on that one. Do you believe that you're kind of a natural when it comes to athletic abilities? And I know no one likes to say that because it kind of mitigates all the hard work that they do, but some people are just put on this planet to do certain things.
I think I'm athletic, yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm athletic.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's funny because I think my son is like this as well. I think anything that we wanted to put effort into, we would be good at.
Yeah.
Athletically.
Yeah. You almost had like a grimace in saying that. What comes up when you kind of think and talk about that?
I don't know. It's hard to, it's.
Do you feel there's some kind of expectation when it comes along with like, oh, I'm an athlete and I'm going to work hard towards something?
No, I think that, you don't want to get people to get the wrong impression that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so good at everything. Like, no, that's kind of not where I'm at all. I just, it's one of those things where it's like whatever you put your mind to, you can do it. And I think athletically, I have been fortunate enough to be pretty decent if I put in the work.
Do you think in terms of your athletic selection, your competition, that kind of stuff, do you think that tends to be a factor in terms of your ability to compete and in a way that you like to compete because of the way that people perceive like genuinely good athletes? Do you think that has an effect on you?
No. I mean, when it comes to competition, I will say I'll remember bits and pieces of, again, being on the soccer field and starting, versus somebody else, or, after a competition in cheerleading, like either winning or not winning. Like I'll remember bits and pieces of how I feel, and I always felt it was so different than how everybody else felt. So, because I just love competing. I mean, it doesn't have to be winning. I'm not saying I love winning and that's it, and it's either win or nothing. I just love the competitive aspect of sports.
Now, we kind of talked about, obviously, the physical attributes that you might have, but along with competing, and you mentioned it before, the idea of being able to be good at something and then be like, yo, it's time to put the work in.
Yes.
What kind of mental attributes do you bring to the table when it comes to not only competing in the sport of CrossFit, but in your athletic career in general?
I think that takes time, or at least it took some time for me, where it's like, okay, you're good at something, but you don't realize like how much you have to put in to be really great at it.
I mean, I've been doing singing lessons for an entire year. I understand that, Mayra. I don't know if you guys hear my silky smooth voice at this point, but no, sorry, go ahead.
That's where the natural ability comes.
I am not naturally gifted. If you guys hear my voice coming straight out of my nostrils right now, that's straight out of Queens, okay? So so sorry to interrupt, but kind of so.
Yeah, it takes time. It takes,
okay.
I think, realizing the sacrifices it takes, and again, it's not only in the gym, because I can work hard. That's not a problem. Mm-hmm. I can work hard in anything, but that's not all it takes. It takes so much more than that. So I think that it takes time. And if you, I don't want to say I found the right balance, but I think I have balance where, I've come to realize like how to make it work, how much work, or how to do, how to do the work to be at that level.
One of the reasons why ask you to sit down and talk with me is because, I talk with anybody on these podcasts, is I want to learn, right? And the only way that I can learn is by basically like letting go of the idea that I know and actually asking genuine questions to get some kind of perspective and pick up on things that successful people do. And I would label you as a fairly successful person, especially athletically and obviously in your business endeavors as well. And obviously being a parent, and that's probably, I would say, your number one priority. And your if you were to rank on your resume of life, being a mom might be number one, I imagine. But, when you go out there and you see other people competing and you see the looks on their faces of this means so much to me, how does that make you feel based upon the reasons you're competing, especially at the level now where it's like you're basically competing for fun? You're not competing for $250,000 like in the open division.
Exactly.
So what did you ever think about that when you go out there or when you're around other people in like the pits and in the warm-up areas and engaging them online and on social media and that kind of stuff? Yeah, I mean, I think
it's like you said, it's such a learning process watching people, especially in those backstage, and I don't know, it almost makes me feel calm somewhat. I mean, because it's I definitely take it all in, even when it's going so wrong, and it's still so great even when it's going so wrong, and I can sit and I can look back and think it was like a really great experience. You can go down and write everything that went right or wrong, but for the most part, I think that I enjoy the way, or I'm grateful for the way I handle a competition. It's not too much of a stressful. I wouldn't say I'm really stressed out. Obviously, I get really nervous. I definitely get excited, but I wouldn't say I feel like very stressed out. It's weird because I have like really high expectations and really high, like, I want to make that podium. Like, I want to compete. I want to be on that podium. But, again, it's not everything. I'm not going to, it's not too much of a stressful thing for me.
So has there ever been a time where you weren't like that? Like, or is this something that you always kind of felt, regardless if you were doing competitive gymnastics, cheer, soccer, or was this something it was learned over time?
I think it's a time and a place. I remember in elementary school, because in elementary school, you're in PE and you're playing, I don't know, let's say dodgeball or something. And again, I'm really good at it. So I'm, beating the boys, let's say. And people aren't nice to you. Like, people aren't always nice to you when you're good at stuff, especially as a kid, I guess. So, and
well, let me stop you there. Do you feel that being good at athletics at a young age has an effect on the development of a child?
Do I think it has I mean, for me, I think it did. I mean, it takes, because again, a time and a place. So then I would learn to try not to be so good.
Really?
Yes. So
why is that?
So people weren't mean to me, or the boy or the girls, again, it was like one of those things where when I was competing in gymnastics and winning stuff, and again, it's go time, then I can be laser focused and, like there to compete. You still might have like your rivals or like, people who aren't necessarily nice to you because they want to beat you. But for the most part, like that's okay. That's where it's supposed to happen, like on the soccer field, so, but like in regular school, when your most favorite thing is PE and, I would almost try not to be so good sometimes, if that makes sense.
Do you feel guilty for that?
Well, I feel guilty about a lot of things. Lots of guilt, lots of mom guilt, ownership guilt.
But I guess specifically for like,
oh, how do I feel about that?
Yeah.
I feel like, well, now I think it's not fair to myself. Now I look back and I'm like, man, that's not fair. That I kind of would feel that way. But then in school, when you don't want to be too competitive either, because then you're like, you don't want to be that kid that takes everything so seriously either. So I think, again, there's that weird, hot and colds that I guess I've taught myself or learned through the years. Because I'm competitive. We could be in the backyard playing ping pong and I, want to win, but it's not at all costs, so,
I can attest to the fact that when Mayra competes, she is very, very competitive, but doesn't care if she loses, which is the most phenomenally aggravating thing on the planet, because I hate when she beats me, because she just is like, I won! I can't believe it! I'm like, I hate your guts. But if I win, she's like, oh, no big deal.
Yeah.
She's like, all right, no big deal.
It's weird.
And realistically, when I think about that, that would be a very, like, a healthy and beneficial way to approach competing.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, definitely. But I don't think it's great to, as a coach, it's almost not the best, like, okay, guys, we really want to win, but if we don't, it's okay. Like, it's
yeah.
As a coach, I don't feel like I would want to, I guess, portray it like that.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes to like another topic of discussion in terms of like where we are today versus what we were brought up on, right? So I could probably say for myself that most of the competing that I did was at a level at which there was an expectation you were going to do your best to win.
Yes.
Along the way, we learned unbelievable life skills from unbelievable people. Like, I almost can recite every single person that I've ever gotten coaching from the age of like 8 years old on, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's a difference now having kids, now coaching kids at this level or at this day and age? Do you think that there's a shift from when you were a child versus where it is now?
Yes. I'm a coach of kids, and it's really difficult to, really push work ethic on them, But I will say I think it's different in sport, in depending on the sport, because in gymnastics and even, let's say, competitive cheerleading, you have your skills, you have what you have, right? So if you go out there and you still compete and hit all of your skills to the best of your ability, that doesn't mean you're going to win. Someone else can have better skills than you. Not everyone's doing the same thing. Whereas in soccer, it could be anyone's game. Anyone can win at any time. So, it just has to be, a pretty good day or, whatever the case may be. So I think that it's, for me, sometimes going into a competition, you're not going to win. So then it has to be, well, I'm going to put on the best performance and the best show that I can. And that will make me feel like winning. I'm a winner. Where, again, team sports, I think, is a little different than that, than the thought process of gymnastics and cheerleading.
So where do you see this taking us? Like, obviously, like you said, you coach your own athletes. Mm-hmm. You have kids.
Yep.
Where do you see this mentality taking us going forward? Because we know what this previous mentality of like, listen, it's about winning and about giving your best effort, about working your balls off. Mm-hmm. And that has taken us to this point. So it's an evolution. Where do you think this brand of coaching is going to take our youth going forward?
Well, I think it's just that. It's the you have to hit what you can do to the best of your ability. And if you in the process have been going to practice, if you in the process have worked really hard, if you've put in some extra work, if you are a great teammate and a great, a coachable athlete, then you can, really feel the effects of winning, of actually winning that trophy. I think nowadays, even in the world of competitive cheerleading, it's about hitting 0, which means hitting, not bobbling, not falling, not, it's you hit that routine. And if you hit 0, it's like coaches and gyms are making that more of a big deal than we won this one competition. Because you can go to a competition, compete against only one other team, and win.
So if I got that correctly, it's basically doing your physical best.
Yes.
And that's it.
And that's it. Yeah. Because again, your physical best may not win.
Yep. So it's like, am I hinging my success and who I am based upon an external, which is what the other people do?
Yes.
I mean, like
so,
go ahead.
So now it's you're, instead of about winning and losing, it is, did you hit all of your stunts and land all of your tumbling and perform to the best that your team can possibly do? Then that's, seems to be just as celebrated as winning the actual trophy.
How does that feel for you?
Well, it makes sense to me, definitely, because again, being a coach now for so many years, there's so many triumphs in one routine that the judges will never know and never see. So yeah, of course, I want to win that trophy, but on the other hand, I mean, when the kid throws their back handspring for the first time in a competition, or that stunt finally hits, or that one girl, puts on a show more than she ever has, like those are, again, all those little things just make it, add up to actual win instead of winning a trophy.
And how does that feel to you versus where you were brought up in terms of like, it's about winning?
It is about winning, right? So yeah, again, I'm so split because I think it's when you, I don't want to say deserve to win. What's the right word? It's like when you when
you've earned.
Because again, you can when you're meant to win. Yeah, when you've earned it and you're meant to, and you put in the work, and you're meant to win. Then then that's what you're shooting for. I mean, again, sometimes it's just not going to happen. I mean, that's like when I did that little stint in weightlifting, right? So I did a whole year pretty much in masters weightlifting. Well, when you go to the competition and you have, your starting numbers, my starting number was already better than the other girls, by a lot. So it's like, oh wait, I already won the competition. I mean, do it just by doing an opener that was not hard, a heavy lift for me at all. Wait, you already won. So it's like that winning versus, not winning, but maybe gaining so much, or again, achieving so much in one performance. I'd rather the gaining than the actual trophy.
Yeah, that's a very interesting kind of idea of like how we gauge success and how we gauge, and then based upon what our purpose is. So, I mean, I think that's kind of where we'll kind of bring this whole conversation to, is like, what is your purpose? So when you talk to your kids, and since we're kind of talking about this, what's your own bias in terms of like why you want your kids to, why you coach your kids, or what they're trying to get out of it?
Yeah. You know what I think, as we're talking, I think it's what makes me feel most proud.
Yep.
That's it. I think it's being proud. Because, for me, sure, I was a Masters national weightlifting champion, but like, not that I'm not proud of it, but like it wasn't challenging. Me being 5th in the world at the CrossFit Games last year versus 5th in the world at the CrossFit Games the year before. And
there was a correction. She ended up being 4th this last year due to a positive drug test, but go ahead.
But anyways, I was so proud of that. I wasn't on the podium when I went there to try and be on that podium. But I was so proud of being 5th place. I mean, that last workout, I think it was places 5th through 9th. It could have been any one of us, something like that. So it was one of those moments where it's like, if I just did the best I could in that moment, I would have placed the best I could have. And at that time, it was 5th place. And I was really proud of that. I was proud to be on that regionals floor, whether I don't even know what place. I was in the 20s somewhere and for regionals, but I was really, really proud to be there. So, everyone works hard. Everyone, earns it in their own right. But if you're, I think I'm very proud of the effort. I'm proud of the results, So I think just if you're proud of what you accomplished, then you're winning.
I like it. And in wrapping this up, Mayra, you have the online qualifier coming up. As of this conversation right now, the workouts will be announced tonight.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts? What are your final feelings about going into your third Masters Online qualifier? Still in the 35 to 39 age group. You've been through the gambit of adversity over the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. Like, where's your head at?
Well, I'm so excited. First, I'm really, really excited. I'm definitely nervous, but I'm ready. It's 5 workouts, 1 weekend. We've kind of been planning for this. I'm really happy that I feel ready, to the best that I can be right now. And I'm really excited. I don't know. I'm excited to be competing again, and I honestly think it's kind of crazy, but I feel like it's almost impossible. It is top 10. That's it. Last year it was top 20. I've never been top 10 in an online qualifier, although I can say I was 5th at the games for 2 years. I've never been top 10 in an online qualifier before. So I feel like it's like almost impossible to make it, especially with the people that I'm competing against and the upcoming people. This is my last year as a 35 to 39 master. So I feel like it's almost impossible, but I'm really excited to really, really go for it.
Cool.
That's it. Yeah.
And obviously we will know the results and the outcome when we release this podcast next week. But definitely a huge good luck to Mayra as she competes this next weekend. Is there one movement that you don't want to see in this Masters Online qualifier?
No, I'm not scared. I'm not scared of anything right now.
All right.
I'm ready.
She's ready. So is there a movement that you definitely want to see?
Handstand walking. Hello. If we can have that in all 5, that would be fabulous.
That's awesome. Now, Mayra, in closing, is there any way that we can get a hold of you if services you offer, upcoming events, anything like that you might want to promote? Yes,
of course. You can find me at CrossFit Delray Beach. My email is Mayra@CrossFitDelrayBeach.com. You can find me on Instagram. It's at Mayra Brandt. You can find me at the Cheer Gym. It's at Boca Extreme. There's lots of places you can find me.
Okay. Yeah. And is there any services in particular that anybody watching this or listening to this might be interested in that you offer?
Oh, gosh. Well, we offer a lot here at CrossFit Delray Beach.
And for you personally?
For me personally?
It's okay, we'll edit that out.
Yes.
But individual coaching, one-on-one coaching, anything like that? Or?
No, I'm kind of the gymnastics coach. So anything gymnastics. I love to do private lessons and personal one-on-one training sessions to get those gymnastic skills. That's my favorite thing to do.
And I can attest to it. She's worked with some high-level athletes and some novice athletes and just getting basic skills. And Mayra is second to none with her 20-plus years of gymnastics experience and her ability to kind of walk the walk, not just talk the talk in the CrossFit world. So, Mayra, anything else you want to give us in closing?
No, thank you.
I appreciate you coming on the podcast here, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, Mayra.
All right.
And there you have it, guys. Thank you very much for listening. And again, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review, and we will see you next time on the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity Podcast.